I don't have to chazar. I'm actually going to learn it inside. Hahu the amale the chavre. My boy spyara. What are you doing in my property? Out. Amarloi. What do you mean? Mit planyo zavina. I bought this from Reuven. The excuse me. And I'm here for 3 years. What do you want from me? Amalei. Sorry. Ha. Sorry. So you say you bought this on July 25th, 2021, and you're in here since then, so you're there for 3 years. The problem is I have a star that I bought it from the same Reuven who you claim to have bought it from. I have a star that says July 25th, 2020. So I own this property a year before you even could have made a chazakah. But the kitna story this Davin Lavinei ha'arbash. I have it since 2020. Omerlei mi savris shnei chazakah klash shnai kanina. Now he was able to prove, this person who made the chazakah, he was able to prove that he was there for much longer. But the time over here is, since you already said you had 3 years, so you're making a statement you were there for 3 years. I'm saying I'm there for 4 years. Therefore, my time trumps your time. Who said that when you say I already have a chazakah, it limits it to only 3 years? Maybe when I say I was there shnei chazakah, I was there many years. Shnei chazakah tuva kamina. I was there for many, many years, way more than 3. And my chazakah precedes your star from 2020. Amar Rava, Zakt Rava, it's legitimate. Avidi inchi the kari lishani tuva shnei chazakah. Sometimes a person could refer to many years, many more than 3 years, as shnei chazakah. And in this, he has to have had a full chazakah completed before the star on July 25th of 2020. So he had to be there since July 25th, 2017, in order for his chazakah to trump, which means he would have to be there from 2017 until now, which is 7 years.
Isn't
to the star that was dated July 25th, 2020.
Isn't a star stronger than a chazakah? There you have imagine has it.
But a star is stronger than chazakah if it's opposing to chazakah. The star just shows that Reuven sold you an asset that he had already sold 3 years prior. So it's proof that Reuven sold it to you. That is true. But Reuven sold you what he didn't own at that time.
From before the star.
Correct. Why? And the Gemara says why? The Kadam Chazakah Lai Star, the Hach, Avo. But if not, Avo, Shis, what if you only were able to show that you were machzik in 2018, so that by the time the star was written in 2020, you only had 2 years of chazakah? The fact that the owner is writing the star, that's his biggest machah. You're in my property for 2 years. Sure, I can go to your property and kick up a stink out of my property. No, I could also do, I can go to Besdin and write a legal tender document and write a star, selling it to a third party. That's as machah can be. And therefore, you will need to be able to have verified a chazakah 3 years prior to the date on the star. Okay, now we're going to add new layers of complication to this title. There's a dispute about a property. Obviously, there's one person in the property, so one person is a muhsuk, but nevertheless, one guy's in the property, and I'm going to go into the Bach here a lot because the Bach adds a lot of words here. So Sai, it's mine, and Sai, I hear for 3 years. And the other says it's my father's, but he doesn't have a taina that he was a chaltia shnei chazak. So the first fellow brought Adam that this property belonged to his father. And the other one brought Adam that he ate shnei chazak. So the question over here is whose taina is going to win? Zok Rashi, Zok Rashbam, that is. It's mine because it was my father's. My father died, and now it's mine. So the Rishon says something very important. The Gemara is not just pulling out of its hat weird questions. This, in fact, occurred. There was actually a dispute on an actual property. One person said it was my father's, and the other person said that I had a Shnei Chazaka. So Omar Rabba, Zakt Rabba, Maloi L'Shaker. There's a Migu over here. Who has the Migu? Zakt Rishbam again. Lozeh Machzik. The person who's in the field right now has a Migu. The Mazatoin, the Shalavoisa, the Yarshavahem. What is he tying it? That it was my father's property, and I yarshed it for my father. You know what he could have said? Iboy Omar Lei Minoch Zavanta Bachaltia Shnei Chazaka. I could have said, I tied it, I have it for 3 years, but it was also my father's. I don't have a right that it was my father's, but that's what I'm tying. I had it for 3 years, and it was my father. You know what he could have said, which would have been a hands-down win? He could have said, yeah, sure, it was your father's. I bought it from you. And I'm here 3 years, and you were in Moicha. So that's a tanya that would have been a sure win. And therefore, he's believed now, when he had the Shnei Chazaka, that it was his father's.
Someone says he ate Shnei Chazaka. What's the?
No, he brought Adam.
One of them says V'hai Isis Sahadi.
The one brought Tadi that it was his father's, and the other one brings.
I could have tied it that I ate Chazaka. I mean, he would have tied it that I have Adam.
No. If he would have said you had Adam that belonged to your father, right? And I have Adam that I have Chazaka, and I bought it from you. So your Adam are neutralized. Technically, you yarshed it, and then you sold it to me. So that would be a very good time, but that's not what I said. I said I sat Shnei Chazaka, but I didn't buy it from you. It was my father's all along.
Saying that he has Chazaka.
One guy has Adam that he had a Chazaka.
Second guy.
Right, but they both say Shalavoisai. They both say Shalavoisai, but one saying on top of a voisai also have Shnei Chazaka. So Reuben said Shalavoisai, and I have a Chazaka. Shimon said Shalavoisai. Shimon brought Adam Shalavoisai, and Reuben only brought Adam that it was Achal Shnei Chazaka. I'm sorry?
Said it's his father.
Lozeh Machzik b'ma'di toin Shalavoisai v'yor shemehem.
Not Chazaka.
Huh?
We're saying that he has a migun. What could he have said?
I could have said it was not my father's. I only had a chazaka for 3 years, which I have Adam to prove, and I bought it from you. No. Hi, Isis Hadi, Dachlish Nechazaka.
No, what's the migun?
Hi, Isis Hadi, Davasay. Hi, Isis Hadi, Dachlish Nechazaka. They each have Adam. One is Adam that is his father's. No, because I bought it from you over 3 years ago, right? Once it's past 3 years, I don't have to hold this now. Sure, but I see Sahadi the Achlish Nechazaka.
What's the migun? Minoch Savante.
I could have tiny that I bought it from you. The Chalish Nechazaka I have a right for. The Chalish Nechazaka I have a right. I have a right that I've been sitting on this field for the last 3 years. That's a riot. I have Adam. The question is my Tanya to.
I don't have Adam in a Chalish.
Yes. The high I Sahadi, what do you mean? It says the high I see Sahadi, the Achlish Nechazaka. You do have Adam.
The second guy.
The guy who has Eidei Chazaka could win because he has a migoi that he could have said, I bought it from you. The problem is here, my taina that it belonged to my father has been obliterated because I don't have Adam to prove it, but you have Adam to prove it belonged to your father. But the fact that I have a chazaka, had I tained it that it was never my father's, had I just tained it that it was your father's, you're right. But I bought it from you, I would get to keep it. I have a beautiful migu. You know what I could have said instead of claiming that it was my father's? I could have said, yes, it was your father's. I bought it from you. Does it make sense?
I mean, I thought the first examiner Shalavai was the guy that's sitting on the property.
Well, it doesn't really matter who's sitting on the property right this second. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter who's actually sitting on the property.
The guy that has aid in the Achash Nechazaka has the migoy that he could have said, I bought it.
That's right. But Amalei Abaye, how could you say that? Mala l'shaka, when you have a migu, you have a good taina. But not when Edom are contradicting you. You didn't say you bought it from him. You said that it belonged to your father, and that's a lie because Edom say that it belonged to his father. So Amalei Abaye, Mali l'shaker, b'makam Edom le'amrina. You never say amigu b'makam Edom. Edom is the best type of nemonis. So you have a nemonis because you have amigu, but I have two Edom. So there's no way. Sorry. It's a very big astir because I claimed.
What is the Edom saying? The Edom saying that it's my father. You actually my father.
Right.
You did. But I have Edom. I could have said I have Edom that I bought it.
That's right. But the problem is that's not what you said. Migu means believe my taina because I could have said that. What is my taina? My taina said it belonged to my father. So I want to use a migu to prove that I bought it, that it was really my father's all along. That I can't because there's an Edom there.
No, who's the migu going on? The migu going on the guy that says he has chazaka?
Yes, the guy who said he has chazaka, he's the one who has the migu.
Right.
He has the migu. I could have said that I bought it from you. But the problem is, how does migu work? Migu works. So since I could have said that I bought it from you, believe me when I say that it was my father.
That's what he's saying.
That's exactly what he said. Look at the time. That was the original time. They both are saying shalavoisai. So migui b'makamedim won't work. Yes, you have a gabaltik in the moment, and it's an unbelievable time that you have a migui. But you know what? He has Edom. If you put migu on the left corner and you put Edom on the right corner, the guy in the right corner is going to win because Edom trumps migu.
Doesn't a migu have to be backed up by Edom or something? He could.
No.
It doesn't need. He could have said something, but it wouldn't be true. He could have said a falsehood, and that's a migu.
Yes, of course. I'm believing that what I'm saying is true because if I am a liar, I could have had a better lie. That's the whole riot. If you're accusing me of lying, of fabricating,
but it wasn't such a good lie.
I'll fabricate a better lie.
He had nothing to back up the lie. The second,
he has Edom that said he made a chazaka. That backs up the lie that he purchased it from him. That's precisely what the chazaka does. It backs up the lie that he purchased it from this guy.
Yeah, but on what he could have said, the migui, what he could have said is not backed up by anything, is it?
Sure, he has 3 years of chazaka. That's what it's backed up by.
Oh, it is. Okay. But
well,
what could he know? He could have said that his father owned it. Did he have anything to support
that's the bad taina, because the Edom said that the other guy's father owned it. So he could have said that I bought it from you. So Amalei Talmidai, I'm going to look at the Rashbam. Amalei Talmidai, he told Abaye, Mali Shakloimer, Aidei Hai Migu, the Mali L'Shaker, Lo Yiska Bekarka. He shouldn't be able to win this argument. Shari Edom Akhishin is Devar. You want to say, believe me, you belong to my father. There's two Edom who says it didn't belong to your father. Show him the Shalavosh of the Yiduchu. You have a chazaka, so that's a riot. They got my chazaka in the klum. You know why? Because you don't have an explanation as to why it belongs to you. Remember, we said a chazaka just will say it's yours if you have an argument of how you acquired it. Shari Eini Mataina, Kiyim Taina Sheker.
I don't understand why the migu doesn't work.
Because there's Edom.
In the Edom. What's the migu? What's he want to say? He wants to say that I
believe me. No, that's the migu. Believe me that it was my father. Because if I'm lying that it was my father's, I would have had a better lie. So I'm saying it was my father's. Yeah, that's exactly what a migu is. That's the definition of every migu. That my other taina would have worked. So even though now my taina is inferior, accept it as the truth, because if I wanted a lie, I would have had a much more superior taina that I would have won with. So I'm obviously being honest.
Malcolm Edom is not against the kind of migu; it's against the
well, that's the whole word. Edom say that I'm lying, and migu says that I'm saying the truth. So Edom win. Zok Gemara, Zok Rishbam, V'alacha Kabaye. Shari Rabba Haidulay Kedemul Chavos. We're going to see Rabba give it. So Omer Rabba Lamai L'Shakari Boy Omelach Minach Zevinda V'Chaltish Nechazacha Omer Lebaye Mali L'Shakari B'Mokem Edom Lo Yamin. You know how whenever they confront a politician with a lie, he kvetches, I didn't mean this, I meant that. It was a goal, it's a stretch goal. Now we're going to see where these kvetches come from. Hadar Amalei, this guy realized, I messed up. My title wasn't good. I'm not believed. Because the Edom said that he belonged to his father. So he said, no, that's not what I meant. In the Avasachi, What I meant was, and when I said it was my father's, I didn't really mean that it was my father's. I meant that it was your father's, but vizavanta mina. I bought it from your father. That's what I meant. V'hada amila davasi. Why did I tell you that it belonged to my father? It's because it was so mine. The samach li Allah kidahavasi. So he's ready. Oh, I better massage my taina. So Rashi, how the amala in the mishum shoyim mafsid noisai kabaye. Once he saw that he lost the argument, because when Abaye pointed out to Rabbah that this is a mikabah kamedim, they said, you're right, therefore you're not believed. So he changed around and he said, the samach halakadavasi hayishayimech umuvtach al karkazu. I was so sure that I'm going to remain the owner of this karka. Ki'ilu hi shalavoisai. Why? I had Adam that could testify that I was there for 3 years without any macha. Because you see, I bought it from your parents. So now the question is, can you change your taina? Uboy gemara toyin the chayz of a toyin. Yochel adam litan bebezin shetoyin bebezin asheroitza the chayz of a toyin l'sakin devar for Yisrael. Now, if you're outright contradicting your previous words, everybody holds you can. But are you allowed to make as a kvetch and a dreidel to say this is what I meant? Toyin v'chayz of a toyin, or ain't toyin v'chayz of a toyin. I'm sorry? What do you mean the registry? What things mean? Here everyone's drink. No, they don't have a land registry, that's right. Yeah. Ula Omar, toyin v'chayz of a toyin. Ula says that no, you could go and massage and change your thing. Zok, which is wrong, very important. Toyin bevezdin bashu roitza. You could say whatever you want in Bezdin. And that's the key. Litaretz dvarim arishonim avobisham makdisham sas. V'zeh shechazer v'ton hide omer davasi the somach lakadavasi. So you can't outright contradict. Nobody holds that. Ula holds by toyin v'chazer v'ton if you can clarify and explain your words. That even though it's very difficult to kvetch in and say that was your meaning, you could do that. But the hardoy omer einoi toyin v'chayz v'toyin. However, even though Ula says you could be toyin v'chayz v'toyin, there's a limit to how far you would stretch it. His title was this belonged to my father, and I sat there shnei chazak. So we massage and say, what did he mean when I said it's my father's? It's so secure with me, it's as if it was my father. But what if he originally said, if his original title it was my father's and not your father's, and I have a chazak. That you can't massage anymore. There is moeded in the chayzer in the time of chayzer because that's no longer massaging and explaining. That's outright contradiction. Now we have another interesting case. What happens if he was in the Bezdin and he lost? Just like in this case, he lost because his migoy is not strong enough to make him be believed that it was his father's property because the other fellow has Adam that it was his father's property. V'loitan, and he didn't come back. Here we have a case where he quickly, in the Bezdin, he says, no, that's not what I meant. I meant that I bought it from your father. What if he didn't do that? And he left Bezdin and the din Torah was over. And then 10 minutes later, it comes back to Bezdin. I have to correct what I said. The tongue, there ain't a chayz of a time. There he for sure can't do that. My timer, tainose agmri. What happened? He left Bezdin, he lost, and he was saying over the play-by-play to his friends. And they told him, idiot, you should have said you meant that you bought it from him. Now it's too late. Once you left Bezdin, we don't believe your time. You can't be tying the chayz of a time. So that's on Ula's side. On the other hand, the Mardinar Doi, who say that in this case you cannot be tying the chayz of a time, is heichad amalei shalavoisai shalakhu. Even though I'm not meant to say that I bought it from your father, but if I say, yes, you have an Adam that say it belonged to your parents, but guess what? Right before your father died, your father sold it to my father. And now I have it. Then I would be believed, because that's not even massaging. That stems very good, because it was my father's. I don't mean it was my father's years back. I meant it was my father's one day before he died. So everybody agrees that chayz of a toin, because that's not even modifying or changing my words. It fits exactly into what I said. It was my father's. Why? Because my father bought it from your father. That's number one. Number two, what about in the case where before the two Baalei Din went into Bezdin, right? They were arguing to my property, to my property. They had this conversation outside of the Bezdin. And outside of the Bezdin, the person with the chazaka didn't say it was my father's because my father bought it from your father. He didn't say that. Only when he came into Bezdin did he say that. And he only came up with this taina while he was in Bezdin. So up until now, in all of the pre-trial hearings, he never brought up that it was my father's because he bought it from your father's. There he will be believed if he first brings it up in Bezdin. The tongue, the chayzer v'toin, he could. Why? My timer. People were going to hold their cards close to their chest, and they don't want to tell you all of their tinus before the entire, because then you're going to think of ways how to counter their tinus. They want to surprise you with their tinus. So you can't say, well, you didn't tell this to me in pre-trial. I don't have to tell it to you in pre-trial. I have to tell it to you now. Amar Meimar. And whenever you fight a traffic ticket, those who speak, you usually speak to the prosecutor right before trial. In the olden days, when you actually went down. And those who said, I'll plead guilty or made a deal with the prosecutor, they're always pushed to the front. And after all those are processed, then those who are denying the charges, who are pleading not guilty, fight their court date. That was pushed to the end. So I didn't like that. So I went to the prosecutor and I told the prosecutor, yeah, I want to plead guilty. So they called me up first. Then they asked me, what do you plead? I said, I plead not guilty. So the prosecutor said, but you told me you're going to plead guilty. And I told him, yes, I did. And I changed my mind. And I got my trial. No, I gained that she dismissed the police officer.
Yeah.
Oh, she was very upset with me. They paged and she was in the building. Amar Meimar, Ana Narda. I'm an Narda. So I should have paskin that Einoi Toyin B'choshev Toyin. But guess what? I'm bucking the trend of Narda. Who severely the Toyin B'choshev Toyin, the Hilchasa Toyin B'choshev Toyin.
In any case.
And then, no, only when it's a massage, not when it's a direct steerer, right? Only when it's similar to this case. Because we said even Ula is Moida, if it's a direct steerer, that you can't do that. Okay, so this was a very interesting Shasugya of Toyin, V'choshev Toyin, and Migui B'mokamed. There's Rosh Hashiva's shiurim on this for months, but we were just touching on the highlights. Ze'omer Shalavoisai, and we have to see the Bach again. The Bach is quite critical over here. Ze'omer Shalavoisai v'achaltia shnei chazaka. V'ze'omer Shalavoisai v'achaltia shnei chazaka. Hi Isis Hadi Davasei v'achla shnei chazaka. Hi Isis Hadi the achla shnei chazaka. So one is Adam to both, and one is Adam to one. So in the last case, you had Adam that it was your father's, and I had Adam that I ate it shnei chazaka. This time, I have Adam for both. Side that it was my father's, and side that I had a chazaka. And you had Adam that it was your father's. Which means, no question about it, one of our two sets of Adam are lying. Right? So, Amar Rav Nachman, Uki achilu levad achila. Your Vuki Arab Cheskes Avos. What happens is what was the case? Hi Isi Sahadi. So what you do is the my chazaka and your chazaka neutralize each other, and the edus of who belong to. I said it wrong, or did the Bach change the wording around? Right, and the other guy only had to write the chazaka. So there's a stira in the Edom. So they're for sure, one of them is for sure lying about who was there for the last 3 years. But but no one is contradicted. The Edom that said that it belonged to Reuven's parents, he's not being contradicted. So therefore, you would follow that. Amalei Rabbah. Rabbah said, because I believe, I think the Bach changes this to Rabbah. No, Amalei Rava. Sorry, Amalei. It is Rava. V'ha edus mukchashisi. You know, one of these two Edom are lying. Once it's a suffix on either set of Edom if they're lying, how could you trust them for anything? Omer Lei, Zobai said, no. Nihid is kachish bachilosa. They're only suffix lying legabe who had the chazaka. Vavasam is kachish. There he has not been contradicted. Zok Gemor Lema Rava Rav Nachman the plukta the Rav Huna Rav Chisda kamivu. Because we're going to find that machlokes, if once you know Edom are liars, are they believed legabe other things? The Idmar. Beis kidei Edom machisha zuas. There were two sets of Edom that contradicted each other in one din Torah. So now they're both suffic to be liars. Omer Rav Huna, if there's another separate shaila that we need Edom for that has nothing to do with the din Torah in which they were contradicting each other, each set of Edom on their own still retains their cheskes krashers and their neman. What you can't do is you can't have one aid from one set and another aid from the other set come together to tell Edoms, because one of them for sure are lying. But if they maintain their original setup, those two, each set of two Edom maintain their cheskes krashers and they'll be believed. Rav Chisda Amar, how could you say that? V'hadei sahadi shakri lamu. How could you even consider allowing Edom that we know it's very possible that they lied? How could you trust them ever again? So Zok Gemara Limar Rav Nachman Lamak Rav Huna. Rav Nachman, who said that we still accept the Edis Lagabi whose father it belonged to because he wasn't Muklish Lagabi that. That's going to look Rav Huna, who says Zuba b'fnei atumida. In other words, the fact that we were caught in a contradiction with another set of Edom does not disqualify us. But rather, Rav Chisda, Zok Gemara, I'll leave it to Rav Chisda. According to Rav Chisda, there's no way to explain our Rav Nachman. In other words, Rav Chisda for sure argues with Rav Nachman, because Rav Chisda says once Edom are involved in a dispute, you don't trust them for anything ever again. Kol shekein here, where it's in actually the same entire. Ki pligi alibi de Rav Huna. The whole argument is according to Rav Huna, because Rav Huna holds they maintain their cheskes kashrus. That's why he says Zuba b'fnei Umaida, Zuba b'fnei Umaida. But Rav Huna is talking about a completely separate entire that would be Neman. Rav Nachman holds like Rav Huna, and therefore Rav Nachman holds that you still believed the set of Edom that says that it belonged to Reuben's father. For Rava, Ad kan like Rav Huna eledus acheres. Sure, if these Edom go to a whole different entire, you'll be believed. But I say this, why? They're caught lying in this testimony right over here, and they said there's a chazaka that contradicted. So you can't believe anything else they said regarding this testimony. Then the second guy brought Edom that it was fathers. So now, so what happened until now is Rab Nachman took the property away from the fellow who only had Edom Chazaka, and he gave the property to the person who also had Edom that it belonged to his father. Right? That's what Rab Nachman did. He passed it. But then now another set of Edom came along and contradicted that as well. So was Rav Nachman going to reverse his psak due to this new information that came into the court, the second set of Edom? Amar Rav Nachman, Anan Achsinai, we took the property away from this fellow, Anam Askinalei, we're going to give it right back to him. Now it doesn't mean you're going to give it back to him, because now it's in limbo. It would go into a situation of Kol Alam Govar, which is something that the Gemara is going to discuss later. When we can't pass in either way, we say Kol Alam Govar. In other words, we follow the rules of the Aguda Kiddush on Simchas Torah, right? We're not choishes that it's making the bezin look bad. They pass in the one way, and now they're reversing it, and it makes them look bad. No, right now this is the right thing to do. And this is what you do. You don't protect the bezdin's reputation. Masav Rava.
Back to the cases. The machlokes Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, but they
Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, yes.
But they keep the Edom features of Zu
Right.
in the same case.
Right.
So
But the question is, now what if one of these sets of Edom, one that comes, say, is on a different case? That's irrelevant to that case. Right? So that's where there's a machlokes. Are they possible forever? Or for another case, they're with her. But in this case, it's the same case though. So that's why, even though it's a different testimony, but it's the same case. Okay, so now we have the question: will Bezdin reverse a psak if it turns out that it was incorrect? So Zok the Gemara. So the Gemara said Rav Nachman had no problem doing that. Moshe Rava the Itema Zeira Shnaim Oimer Meishu Shnaim Oimer Loimes. There's a question about a woman whose husband went far away, and two of them came along and said her husband died, which means she's allowed to remarry. And two of them came along and said, no, her husband didn't die, and therefore she's not allowed to remarry. Or Shnaim Oimer Niskarsha, Shnaim Oimer Loim Niskarsha, and there's two pshatim in what this is. Either it means either means that two of them said that she was divorced so she could remarry. Two of them said she wasn't divorced and she can't remarry. Or the question is the husband died, and the question is did he divorce her before he died, and therefore is she Zokah Kol Yibum or not? Regardless, there's a steer in Adam as to whether or not this woman is allowed to marry. As her status quo, best no paskin, she may not remarry. What if she remarried? Loy say you don't make him divorce her. Rabbi Nachem, Rabbi Yosy, Omer Teitze, you do make her husband divorce her. Omer Rabbi Nachem Bar Yosy, Zok Nachem Bar Yosy. Under what circumstances do I say that if she married, she has to get divorced? That's if when she got married, she had already known that the second set of Adam came. So she got married while she knew that she wasn't allowed to get married. So you got married knowing you weren't allowed to get married, Teitze. What if as soon as the first set of Adam came along and said that you can get married, your husband died, she got married, fair and square and legal, and then after she got married, the Akach Bo Adam, there are Loy Teitze. In other words, Bezdin will not reverse their psak. Unlike what Rav Nachman said, here he's saying Bezdin will not reverse their psak. Omer Lei, so Rav Nachman said, Ana Savri Lemevet Uvda, I held that my psak is right, and therefore, if it turns out more information came up later, and the second set of Adam came and said it was his father's as well, I have to undo the psak of Bezdin, V'loy Chashin Lazilu Levedina, but you're proving me otherwise. Hashudo Svinon At, now that you're asking, and Basuria asked, in other words, you have right from Rabbi Nachem Rabbi Yosy that you are choshish l'zila v'dina, and that's why if she married already legally, we won't make him divorce her. Loy avdinin ba'uvda. I'm not gonna reverse a psak of bezin. I will be choshish l'zilus v'dina. That's what Rabbi Nachman said. And then you know what he did? Nafak avuduvda. And then a moment later, he actually did reverse the psak of bezin, which is contradictory to what he said a second ago. So someone says, Rabbi Nachman do that, thought he must be making a mistake because he just conceded that you don't reverse the psak of bezin. Veloy, that's not correct. That's not what happened. Elamishum the talya ba'ashli ravavi. From there, you talk have a raya that you don't reverse the psak bezin. But Rabbi Nachman had two titans, two tanoim, who said that you for sure do reverse the psak of bezin. It's not Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ein ma'il l'kuna peirach. There's an eiracha that says that this fellow is a muchzik to be a good kohen. He's allowed to duchen, he's allowed to get truma. Omer Rabbi Lozer, Emasai. When do we say that ein ma'il l'kuna peirach? That's b'mokam sheyesh oirin. Let's look at the base. Emasai bizman sheyesh olav oirin. Well, ein olav oirin. If there's no one claiming that he is not a kohen, mine lakuna peirach. So we have to have what's going on, because if there's no iron, you don't need an erech at all. You need an erech for I'm a kohen. So the Gemara has to get down into the details of the case. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Bishum Rab Shimon ben Askan, mine lakuna al peirach. So the question is, that's exactly what Rabbi Lozer said. They both said mine lakuna al peirach. Oh, so the Gemara is going to say Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Hani Rabbi Lozer. The machloikus is by ir echad. If there's only one ir, I mean only one aid is coming along and saying that he's osh kohen. Rabbi Lozer over ir echad means when am I believed? Ir echad have a ir. If one aid comes and says this fellow is not a kohen, he's a ben grusha ben chalutza, then an eid echad wouldn't be neman. If there's no ir at all, then eid echad is neman. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel savar ir trey, meaning afilu b'makom ir echad have a eid echad neman shiroi. It's only if two eidim come along and say that he's possible, then one eid wouldn't be believed. Break the Gemara that it doesn't make sense to say that that's the machlokes between Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer. You know why? Because the Amar Rabbi Yochanan divrei hakoil in pachas b'shnayim. It's not ir unless it's two edim. So there had to have been two edim at one point that came along and said that this fellow was the ben gerusha and the ben chalutza. So then we need to understand over here, how is one aid going to work to say that he's a kosher kohen if there's two edim that are coming along and testifying that he's a ben gerusha ben chalutza? Ela ir trey. It must be the Makom Sheish Ir means there are two edim that are being married. This must be the case. It must be a lot more complications than the case. Kegoin. The machzakinin lay ba'avua dahai the kohen. The status quo was he was known to be a kohen, and he was going on happy, and he was duchen, he was taking truma, he was a good guy. And then v'nafach alokala the ben grusha uben chalutu. Then a rumor came out about him. No edus, just a rumor. He's ben grusha ben chalutza. So temporarily, until we would clarify his status, vachsinu, and they suspended him temporarily to find out what's going on. But also Eid Echad, and then Eid Echad came along, V'amar the Koinu, and he said he's a Kohen. And therefore Vaskinei, because here one Eid would be Neman, because there was never any verifiable proof that he was not a Kohen, there was just a rumor. With one Eid, we reinstated him as Kuna, and then after that one Eid came along, also betray the Amri, the Ben Gerusha v'Chalutu. And now two Eidim came along and said he's a Ben Gerusha v'Chalutu, who are surely believed over the Erecha that came earlier. And therefore Vachsinu. And now we once again removed him from the Kuna. And then also Eid Echad, the Amr the Kohen. And now a second Eid came. So now in total, you have 2 against 2, except the 2 Eidim were broken up. Everybody would hold that there's no problem being mitzvah the original Eid Echad to the current Eid Echad. They're both testifying on the integrity of this Kohen Jichus. The Hacha, the Mechish, Lizilusa, the Vedina Kamifakli. And maybe the whole Machlokes is, oh, you Choshish, Lizilusa the Vedina. And let's say that Rabbi Eliezer Savar, given the Achsini, Loi Maskinalei, Rabbi Eliezer holds that once we made him Oish Kohen when the 2 Eidim came, we don't put it back. Why? Chashinan Lizilusa the Vedina. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Savar, Anan Achsinan, Anan Maskinalei, just like Rav Nachman said, Ulizi Lusa the Vedina Lechashin.
Why would they put him back 2 against 2?
Because he had a chesk. Oh, so the Rashbam says there's 2 against 2, and he has his original cheskos kashrus. So Uki Trey about the Trey, Velkmua cheskos. He had a cheskos kashrus before it started. So Zok the Gemara, we haven't proven that the Titans hold Lizilus Levin Lechashina. We proved that maybe Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds that, but Rabbi Elazar holds you are Chashina. So the Gemara says we're going to go over this anyway tomorrow. If you're going to say so never mind if one that came later, even if 2 Eidim came later to say that he was kosher, there's still a problem with Zilus Bedin. Elamar Rashi, the Chul Alma Loi Chashin was Zilus Bedin. You have to say that both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel do not hold up with Zilus Bedin. So we could stop here because the point is, what Rashi is saying is everybody agrees. Sai Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Sai Rabbi Eliezer hold that Zilus Bedin like Chashinon. So that's why Rav Nachman felt supported, is that these 2 titans saying that Zilus Ledina, therefore Rav Nachman also reversed his psak and took it away from the guy who originally had Eidim, and it was his father's, and put it into a Kol Dalam Gover state, because now both of them have Eidim that it was their father. There are so many nuances that I couldn't cover here, but maybe tomorrow I'll be able to get into them. Maybe tomorrow we'll have a little bit more time. So you're still waiting?